Let's say you've made it in your chosen profession, you have your own company, and you're even winning BAFTAs for your animation work. How do you keep the creative juices flowing? Well, to answer that question, we are very lucky to have the co-founder of BlueZoo Animation Studio, and he's here to talk us about that and also what's coming up in their pipeline. All right, Tom Box, please welcome.
Hi, everyone. Cheers for coming to hear what we've got to say today. So today I wanted to give you a bit of a talk about how we work and how we stay creative, and rather than doing the kind of shot breakdowns, shot progressions and all those demos, really wanted to share what I've kind of learned over the last 15 years of how we kind of keep our animation studio successful, which you can also use in a personal way if you don't happen to run an animation studio, which a lot of people don't. So there's more to take away from it than just that. Hang on a second. There we go. So I thought if you don't know kind of some of the stuff we've done recently or what we've been up to, I'd start off by playing our most recent show reel. So that's a bit of a mix of our work. As you can see, pretty much everything we do involves kind of CG character animation. But that kind of leads me on to how we got to where we are today. And part of that is of how we got to where we are is about how we started, which is really makes us who we are today and is the reason that we're still here. So we started back in 2000, just 4 people in a crappy little room, as you can see there. And we've grown since then to over 140 people that the studio is today. And why is that part of who we are? Well, kind of most animation studios start from working in other animation studios, and the staff will leave to set up their own thing, and they'll borrow the methods, techniques, and workflows and how the business runs. So they're kind of like one studio evolves out of another studio. And we didn't do that. We started straight out of university, just a few friends, having no knowledge of how to run a company or no business contacts. And that meant we had to work out everything on our own, in our own way, which meant we were kind of very independent and have stayed that way. And the reason that's led to our success is because we didn't borrow another studio's pipeline. We evolved our own ways of working. And we kind of learned that that's not just about being kind of creatively, artistically, but also technically. For instance, on the very first project we didn't have a big render farm. So we had to render a TV series all on the GPU. And this was back in 2000. So we kind of GPU rendered the whole series. Before that was a buzzword. So it's about kind of being creative in lots of different ways. And that led to us being very efficient by necessity rather than design. And that's meant we've always kind of figured out very efficient ways of working, almost like we've kind of evolved as an island rather than evolved out of another studio, which has meant we've been able to stay very competitive, which has been kind of essential for being able to compete in a very tough industry. This is the only chart I've got to show today. So this I thought I kind of like represent graphically how our kind of company works. And this is our kind of our plan. And it's about kind of making quality over the kind of profit. Because each area of that kind of chart is a key area for any business. And when you start small, you're kind of like ticking off the quality and profit, but you can't take big projects on. So a nice, juicy, exciting project might come along, and you can't do it, so you have to turn it down. But then you kind of have to grow in size, but that might mean you're not making as much money, so you've got massive overheads, and you've got lots of mouths to feed, so you might take on kind of less good projects just to pay the bills. Or you might just slip on kind of quality and go for profit and size, and that might mean just outsourcing all the work, and then you might have quality issues. So it's lots of swings and roundabouts. But our aim is to kind of stay bang in the middle there. So an idea is, I guess, if we can make the highest quality animation we can, then it has a knock-on effect, and that will bring in profit and lots of work, which will make the size. So rather than trying to work out how to make profit or how to kind of like work out what the best size is, we're just going for quality, and then the rest will kind of follow. So that quality really comes from creativity. You can't really have it without that. But also, if creativity is part of your core business plan, it makes it tricky because you can't force creativity because it requires freedom. So by nature, it's quite tricky to actually try and make people constantly be creative. So how do we get around that? I've kind of put 10 things that I think are the core things that helps a studio be creative. So number one is communication, which I think is the most important part of any studio, kind of more so than skill. Because you could be the most kind of like have a studio full of the most incredible artists in the world, but if they can't work together and they can't talk, then it's kind of going to descend into blame and chaos and resentment. So making sure that everyone gets on well together is very important. Also, another way we do this of helping communication is on our kind of company-wide email list. Even though it's a very small thing, we kind of allow everyone to talk about whatever they want. Because I think as soon as we start saying, oh, don't post this or don't post that, people will start thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't post that, and people will stop posting. And then that will slowly lead to it kind of dying out. So for us, it's very important to just let people just do whatever they want, which usually means there's just a lot of cat gifs flying around, but that's a form of communication, so that's all good. Also, it's vital that everyone kind of is friendly and gets on well. And because if anyone's been on a team where someone's been a bit kind of grumpy and pessimistic and doesn't care, it will kind of sink a team like an iceberg ripping through the Titanic. And that kind of like will lead on to each compartment filling up one by one and sinking the whole thing, because negativity spreads very easily until it's too late to fix. So if that person's kind of not very happy, it's really important to try and fix that. Maybe they're not doing the right type of work, or the project just isn't right for them. So it's always really important that everyone is very happy, because happy people makes good work. Conversely, if people aren't happy, and then you kind of start taking on projects that aren't great, and then it's going to kind of tailspin into just making crap work. So it's very important to try and make sure that people on the team just are enjoying it. And then another important thing is collaboration. And this can help in many ways. and much of it follows on from the communication side of it. Because I think when you make animation, it's one of the most collaborative art forms that exists. Because if you're a filmmaker, you can kind of grab a camera and make a stunning film on your own. But if you're a 3D animator, that's pretty hard, because you need a great ZBrush artist to make fantastic environments and creatures to populate it. You want a killer rigger to create lightweight rigs that are a joy to animate with, and someone who can make fantastic shaders and texturing, and then the lighting and comping for people who kind of understand light. So you need a very good team. And it's very rare for someone to be able to do all those things, but really annoying when someone does all those things, because wouldn't you all like to be good at all those things? So collaboration is the best way of getting around all that. And also, I always find that collaboration can take a project somewhere where you didn't expect it to, because you get the best ideas by bouncing ideas off each other. And the first idea you come up with is never the best, and other people can bring different perspectives and inspirations. And it's always fascinating to see how an idea can grow just by bouncing it between different people to improve it. But also, making short films is one of the ways we stay really collaborative, which is tricky, because when we were just a team of, say, 10 people, coming up with ideas kind of happen naturally, because you go down the pub and chat about projects you'd like to do, but it's pretty hard to take 150 people down the pub. So we try and kind of come up with other ways of keeping that small kind of team spirit alive. And we do that by our short films project. For years, we wanted to make collaborative projects, but we found it was actually impossible to get things done, because we'd start a few projects in downtime, and then we'd do a bit of it, and then a paying project would come along, and we'd have to then do the paying project, so that short film would get put on hold. And then by the time that paid project finished, you've got an idea for another short film. So kind of nothing ever got finished. So we kind of wanted to find a way of getting around that. So we decided to take a chunk of our profits from each year and kind of ring fence it and say, right, this money is there to make short films. And so we'd get everyone involved in making the short films and try and use it to kind of push our studio in to do different things that we wouldn't normally do. Because clients usually just look at our show reel and just say, I'll have a bit of that animation, which really restricts you creatively, because you're not creating new stuff, you're just creating stuff that you've already done. So creating shorts gave us that opportunity to make new stuff and to make our show reel different and push it forward, which is very important to keep all the team kind of excited and motivated, rather than just doing the same old project again and again. So if you see our show reel now, a massive chunk of it is our shorts work, which speaks volumes as the kind of the work everyone's making, and that helps bring more work in, because everyone can see we're having lots of fun making the work, so people want some fun animation. And a core part of the ethos is including everyone. So the way we run it is everyone is allowed to pitch in ideas, and then you present them in front of everyone, and then everyone then votes on what their favorite idea is. And more recently, we did this for our Christmas short, which I think it was last October. We kind of had to think of, okay, what should we do for our Christmas animated short? And my daughter, who's 3 years old, was obsessed with Frozen. So my kind of simple brain thought, let's make a kind of animated song. So we often work with a musician called Ben Champion, who does some of the theme tunes for the shows we do. And we asked him to write a song about elves' first world problems. And then he wrote the song, and then we asked everyone in the studio to pitch, or if they wanted to pitch, to come up with a visual treatment for that song in a kind of like parody Disney musical style. And I think 5 people pitched, and everyone voted, as these pictures are from. And 2 animators, Simone and Joe, won the pitch to co-direct the short, and then they had 10 weeks of studio resources to make it. This is part of their pitch, so they had these kind of like weird little creature designs, and I think their pitch won, I think, because it had that kind of quirky comedy element to it. But I'll play the short that they made.
Forget about the joy of giving. Forget about Christmas cheer. You will find the meaning of Christmas right here. More stuff, more stuff. Everybody wants to get more stuff.
Stuff in a stocking, stuff in a sack.
You're killing the planet. You're killing my back.
More stuff, more stuff.
It's getting kind of hard to ignore stuff. We're running out of places to store stuff.
You want more stuff?
More stuff.
You've already got enough stuff.
If you want our opinion on it, you don't need another new lunchbox. Just because it has a minion on it. Or a princess.
A woolly hat that your granny chose.
You've already got 27 of those.
A useless juicer.
A selfie stick.
Now everyone can look like a total princess! We're wasting our time here, I think you'll agree, when you put it all on eBay in January.
The hours are lousy.
The pay is the bits!
And most of all, we have to wear ridiculous outfits.
More stuff! More stuff! Why does everybody want more stuff? Santa will be bringing you your stuff! You will go!
Sit down.
I want a selfie stick.
So that was, the team made that in about 10 weeks. It was kind of the way we did it. There were about 5 kind of core people working on it, 5 or 6 core people, and then we kind of divvied up shots between lots of people. We've asked anyone in the studio who wanted to work on it, whether it's helping animate one shot or lighting one shot. So it was hugely collaborative, and everyone really kind of, I think, enjoyed bringing it all together in a very short amount of time. Also, as another example of collaboration, we wanted to make a short film that could involve everyone. But one of the tricky things with that is when you're making animation, it has to be very structured, and that takes time. So we wanted to really come up with an idea of where everyone could get involved with the project in a less structured way. So came up with the idea of kind of an animation game of consequences where we take some music and each person could just animate kind of 2 seconds and then pass it on to the next animator for them to animate 2 seconds without seeing what each other had done, it's fun, but also quite scary because we had absolutely no idea what it looked like until it was finished. And then on top of that, we then gave the finished animation to all of our lighting team who just went a bit crazy and lit it in loads of different ways. So every lighting person did their own little experimental render. So it's great because it's a purely experimental project. So I'll play that for you.
This is a Piccolo and Jubilee service to Popney Wapney. Next station is Arthur.
So that was just. I think that really helped demonstrate our studio in a slightly different light from we're not just kind of some animation factory churning out animations people ask us to make. It showed us in a much more kind of creative, experimental light, which is very important for to be portrayed in that different sense. And out of that project, for example, Disney and Burbank contacted us and asked us to make some channel IDs for their channel from seeing that, and their brief was make whatever you want because they loved it so much. So it really kind of like it was great seeing that work kind of come in from doing something like that, which is just purely experimental. To see it kind of follow on from that. The next thing is competition, because that really motivates each other to do better work. But I think it's you've got to do it the right way. It's got to be healthy competition. For example, I think Microsoft tried to make their different departments competitive and to make their hardware team and their software team more kind of compete against each other when they wanted them to do better. But in fact, that kind of backfired because the hardware team were making their tablets and their software team were making their Office software, and they were working kind of against each other. So they didn't collaborate to make nice kind of like mobile Office software for their tablet, which meant their whole tablet failed. And then Apple kind of did a much better version because they didn't have that that competition in their company. So it's very important to have competition, but the right kind of competition. We try and kind of make things happen in our studio, have that kind of friendly competition and challenges. For example, we do daily doodles a few times a week where someone will suggest a theme and people will email their sketches to the whole kind of company of what they've done. So this was yesterday's, which was, the theme was Bad Dinosaur, where people had fun with that. And also we have kind of ZBrush sculpting challenges. This is last week's one in the studio, which the theme was tool. So just having those kind of those creative things helps keep everyone chatting and sharing, but also helps kind of push people to do things that they might not normally do. Number 4, recruitment. An animation studio is nothing without its staff. It's just a bunch of computers doing nothing. So for us, it's kind of really important for us to find staff who are kind of just really eager to learn and improve. Because kind of if someone feels like they know everything and there's no more to learn, they'll kind of won't have the enthusiasm to kind of embrace projects as much from my experience. So we look for staff who have got that kind of room to grow. And it's vital to build teams that work well together, going back to the communication thing. So generally when we interview people, it's to find out, see if they're generally kind of nice people, because we can see from their show reel what they can do. But when we get them in, it's to kind of get an idea if they'd be a good fit for the team. On to number 5, sharing, which is a very important thing. For example, every so often we have Friday showings where at the end of the week we'll show recently completed work to kind of celebrate the work people have done. And we'll also email out each month all the work people have been doing and the news, just to keep everyone in the loop on the communication side of it. So it's really good to kind of like to share stuff so people in the team kind of take that on and share stuff within the team. So we have smaller team showings of films people have liked. And then in those showings, we'll also try and do kind of critiquing sessions. So watch a few short films, and then amongst the small team, people will suggest how they could improve the film if we had made it internally, which is nice because rather than critiquing our own stuff, because you're not laying into someone's work when up against it with a deadline. So we find that if we critique others, we can learn from each other's critiquing skills without really pissing someone off. And also, another thing is just don't be rude about other people's work. Because I've kind of given warnings to people before when they've been a bit unpleasant when critiquing, and it's not needed because there's a million ways you can give good constructive criticism. So saying something looks a bit crap is just kind of a bit unprofessional and really demotivating. So it's kind of it's really important to make sure that when you are doing that, you're doing it in the right way. And also to stay inspired. For example, on our company intranet, we always make sure there are ways people can share projects they found online to help everyone kind of be aware of cool animations they should see to inspire them to go and do their own cool animations. Number 6 is stay challenged. And that's kind of not just creatively, it's about software. This is some of the kind of software we use in our pipeline. And we always try and see if we are using the right tools and use new tools. For example, in our TV series, we moved from After Effects to Nuke. And that's not so much because After Effects was doing a bad job. It was because our staff felt they'd mastered After Effects and wanted a new challenge. So we moved to Nuke. Even though it cost our studio a lot of money, we did it to keep our employees motivated and help their kind of their CVs so they have those skills that will help them in the future. And similarly, we moved to a Redshift rendering, which helped everyone kind of learn a new rendering system. And all that kind of keeps people engaged and motivated. So it's really trying to keep things pushing forward, because generally if people aren't motivated, they're not happy, and therefore they won't be very creative because they can't really be bothered to come up with ideas. And we also do things like try and push into new areas. So last year we did a few virtual reality projects. This is a storyboard from a 360-degree story VR project we're currently finishing at the moment. And then also doing games as well. So people have got the opportunity to work more in games in our studio. So also other things like we do kind of free life drawing lessons or classes each week. So it's trying to think of different ways of keeping people engaged. It's also just small things like, for example, we do have cheap kind of gym membership, and we do that because it's good to have all our staff healthy, because if you've got a healthy mind, you'll create lots of kind of serotonin, which again will make you happy, which goes hand in hand with making good work. And also pushing our studio into big and better things. So this is a film project we're developing at the moment, which we're kind of constantly sharing with the team so everyone's got an understanding of where the studio is going. Number 7, socialize. A good studio is one where everyone is kind of friendly and friends with each other, with a minimal amount of politics and social groups and cliques, and kind of that socializing might happen naturally, but some people aren't good at kind of making friends when they come to a new studio, so it's important for us to really try and do as much kind of group socials as possible. So we do the kind of standard Christmas and summer parties, but we also do things like next week we're doing a pub quiz, and we do kind of free beer every week at 5 o'clock to try and so everyone can stop doing their work and come together and just have a chat without leaving the studio. And that gives the people an opportunity to meet each other and get away from their desks and just relax a bit. And although those are things a lot of studios do, I think it's really just important for us to keep that in mind, keep coming up with new things to do like that. I think environment is kind of part of keeping everything flowing. Because if your animation studio feels a bit like a solicitor's office, it's not going to be very inspiring to your staff. And also, from a kind of a layout point of view, it's about being open, because before we moved to this studio, we were down in Soho and we had lots of little rooms, and it kind of led to people kind of getting detached from each other and not seeing what was going on. And if someone had a problem, the person who might be able to fix it couldn't overhear them because they're in a separate room. So having everyone in one room meant people could really help each other out and bounce ideas off each other more. And it led to more kind of spontaneity of ideas. And you really have to build the right conditions for that to happen. Number 9 is lead by example. We're quite kind of fortunate because we're privately owned. We can afford to be a bit more altruistic in the way we work than companies that have lots of kind of shareholders to answer to. So one example of this was other co-founder Ollie Hyatt, who spent a lot of his time at work kind of championing the UK animation industry and set up Animation UK, which championed to introduce tax breaks to help rival other countries that are doing similar things, because we were finding that we couldn't be as competitive. So Ollie set up Animation UK and helped introduce the tax breaks, and that's since led to, I think it's a 300% increase in animation in the UK, which has been good, but at the same time, it's made it hard for ourselves because a lot of the animators are now employed, so we kind of struggle to find as many animators, which is good for animators, but less good for us. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's really good for the industry as a whole. And now Ollie's going on to working with the BBC Trust to try and help the kind of children's budgets in TV. Going back to the environment, one of the things we do, kind of leading by example, is there are no kind of managers' offices there. Everybody in our studio is in the kind of open office. We don't hide in kind of sectioned off rooms. The managers are there for everyone to chat to try and demonstrate our ethos of approachability and kind of sharing. And also, we don't have runners because managers can make their own coffee. And I think it's a bit demeaning to make someone with a degree just to sit around making coffee all day. So we try and think of other ways of getting that working. So we do kind of paid internships because, again, it's not really fair if we have non-paying internships. Legality aside, then it'd make it only applicable if people could afford to work for free. And if you don't have parents who can afford to pay you when you're not working, that doesn't make it very fair on people who can't afford it. So we thought if we do kind of paid internships, that would help. That'd help people get into our studio. And if everyone can see that's your mentality, then hopefully people in the studio will have a more fairer attitude as well. So I guess the idea is if management act fairly and treat our staff fairly, that kind of filters down throughout the company, and which helps to have just a nice environment and then creativity to blossom, and which leads to kind of our staff hoping that they understand that our core aim is just to make nice animation, not to make a kind of quick buck. So we don't have ambitions to sell off our studio to the highest bidder or to farm out all the work overseas. We love making animation in our studio in London, and we're not about to kind of flog it off to make a quick buck and so we can buy a sports car. And it's making sure that everyone kind of understands that, so we're all in it together. Lastly, don't be a dick. I wanted to say this to last because it's so important. I thought it was worth having its kind of own slide for, because I think the key to being successful in the creative industry and keeping a studio creative is not being a dick as a manager, but also employing people who are not dicks, and to be nice to people and to work with nice people and go out and meet nice people at kind of festivals like this to expand your network, and also to treat an intern as nicely as you kind of treat your boss, and also stay friends with university people, because it is all about kind of knowing as many people and collaborating with nice people, and then great things will happen out of that. So that's my general kind of list of 10 things that I think help our studio get to where it is. I think we've got a few minutes for any questions. We've got 5 minutes left for any questions, if we have any.
Hello,
Hi there.
I'm Lucy. I've been freelancing in animation for 3 years.
Okay.
So far, it's been quite I'd say, romantic, quite a magical, but also a disheartening experience.
Okay.
As you can imagine, starting up, it can be quite hard. And I realise now that after getting my master's, which was 3 years ago, and then I immediately went into freelancing, I realise now that I probably need to do a bit more spec work, experimental projects, as like you do, and put together like a speculative portfolio to get the work I not only want to do, but need to do because it resonates on a personal level. And I found that passion and sincerity sells in a portfolio.
Yeah.
And how ready do the in-house people and freelancers have to be to find that perfect project for them?
How ready do you have to be?
Yeah. Or how do you like, get the credentials, or even just shout from the rooftops for that project that
I'd
they're
say
looking for?
a very important, because whenever we kind of like look for new staff, we'll always ask our staff if they know of anyone first. So I'd say from a kind of a job hunting perspective, build up as many friends, and it's not necessarily just about contacting companies. It's about, maximizing your peer network. So people in companies can go, I know my friend's looking for a job. And then you'll probably jump to the top of the list, and as a personal recommendation goes a lot further. So that would be my number one kind of tip to suggest. But I think in terms of if you're applying, I'd say we really look, in terms of animation, we'd really look for personality in a showreel, because when you're looking for 100 showreels, they can all start looking very similar with the same kind of projects given out. So it's very important for us to see what someone's injected to make it a bit more unique, so we can see that creativity come through.
And their voice can be heard as well.
The voice.
Yeah, sort of like their personal voice can be.
Yeah, exactly.
Can be
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah, which is what it's all about, really. It's just seeing what someone can bring to a project.
Sweet.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it has.
Cool.
Very good. Thank you.
That's right.
Hello there.
Hi there.
My name's Wayne, and I'd just like to ask, for someone who's not a fresh graduate or a student, what advice would you give them, and how do you actually still consider people who maybe like left university or studying quite a few years ago?
Yeah.
I'd just like to know that.
It makes a difference to us when you stop studying. It's all about the quality of your work, and if you did that work at university, or you did it in your spare time, or part of the different animation clubs there are online, that will help contribute to a great showreel. So it is about just seeing that spark of creativity in your showreel rather than the dates on your CV. So I wouldn't try and park that mindset and just really just concentrate on making excellent work to get you into those roles.
Thank you.
That's right.
Hiya.
Hi there.
Absolutely love the fact that you guys are doing these internal projects. It's really, really cool.
Cheers.
I was just interested to know what made you decide to go straight into setting up your own company rather than going into the industry initially?
Sounded fun. Essentially, we had nothing to lose. We didn't have mortgages or families when we were 21 and we started the company. So it was a no-brainer as to give it a go. We thought if it didn't work, then we'd have to go and get proper jobs. But fortunately, it all went along all right. And we kind of got a small loan from a family friend to buy the computers and stuff, and it all went on from there. So it really wasn't a massive decision I had to think long and hard about. It was more of just let's go for it, and haven't looked back since then, really.
Awesome. And how did you win your first project? How did you go about that?
That was a kind of case of being in the right place at the right time, which goes back to the whole networking thing, because we had our degree show in one of the VFX studios in London, and the BBC were looking for a company to make lots of animation. So our tutor pointed them our way, and at the time it's because they needed loads of content because it was just when Freeview was starting. So our very first project was for the launch of CBeebies. So it's just one of those things of being in the right place at the right time to meet the person who was looking for animation. So it's just a case of getting out there and meet as many people as you can.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks.
No problem.
Time for one last question.
Hi.
Hi there.
Do you have personal projects outside of work, or do you feel that work fulfills that sort of creative need?
I'd like to. It's finding the time with running a company and a family. It's always tricky to. I do a few bits here and there, but generally, if there's a personal project, I'll try and find a way of shoehorning it into work so it can it'll happen rather than just me thinking about it at home.
Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks very much. We've got to wrap up there. We've got 15 minutes before Rushes will be coming in for a talk about motion graphics. But thank you very much, Tom. That was brilliant. Thank you.
No problem.